It's the dawn of a new age, and it begins today. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Formula 2 stream. GP4 is over after a very long time. Now, rebranding, and we're here with brand new cars, brand new drivers, but of course, the same commentary team as last race. Hello there, guys. Welcome. I am your commentator, Robert Ionescu, in the lead role. And just like I was for the finale in Brazil, I am joined by former host of the top class, BTCC and Formula E, as well as current OC driver and former OC champion, Joseph Willows. Hello there, Joe.
Hello, and yes, indeed, it is a brand new era, a very anticipated brand new era for the feeder series as well, because it's a brand new look.
Indeed, so it'll be the first time we get to see the OCF2 cars in action, or as the real name is. We can just skip the real name because it's a chore just to read, honestly. But how are you doing?
Very well indeed. I think we decided to nickname it the OCF2 car just so that it wasn't a tongue twister. But yes, a brand new
Yeah,
car,
indeed.
and yeah, very much looking forward to it indeed. And who knows really what this new era has to offer.
Absolutely right. We've arrived here in Brandenburg, the easternmost state of Germany, just about a few dozen kilometers away from the Polish border. But we've arrived here at Eurospeedway Lausitz ring for the first test of the season. Now, before we get going, let me just take you guys through our season's calendar real quick. Today we're going to be testing at Lausitz ring, of course, and tomorrow we'll be taking a trip to Italy, testing at Imola. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be going to the first race at Baku, followed by a return to Jockenheim. After that, it's an Iberian double header with Portugal at Algarve, of course, in Portimao, and Spain at Barcelona up next. Round 5 will be the first voted track, speaking of which voting is going to end after this session. So if you're a GP2 driver and you haven't voted yet, and by GP2 driver I mean F2 driver, now's your last shot. After that, we've got Austria.
It's the track voting. I don't think it's the track voting, Rob, that's closing. I think it's another vote, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, right. Well, never mind. After that, we got Austria, round 7 at Britain in Silverstone, of course. Hungary is off the calendar. We'll be going next to Belgium on the 6th of September, and the week after that to Monza. Next up, round 10 will be a brand new addition. It's not a vote track, it's an idea I came up with. It's a wildcard race. There'll be a secret race which Flo will decide on his own. It will not be on the Top Class calendar, of course. What will it be? Nobody knows. After that, F2 will be taking a return to Malaysia after a few years off the calendar. Then we got the last 2 voted tracks, and then on the 1st of November, the finale in Brazil. What do you think of that calendar, Joe, now that we've gone from 13 races up to 14?
First time since 2017 it's gone up to 14 races, and yeah, I'm very interested to see how this wildcard race is going to work out. Obviously, as you mentioned, it was an idea that you came up with, which Flo agreed with. So I'm very interested to see what Flo's got on his mind for that one. Of course, he's got plenty of time to figure that one out, but it will be interesting to see what that race ends up
Yeah,
being.
indeed.
And of course, the free voted tracks as well. So it should be quite interesting. And I'm also looking forward to a return to Malaysia as well. That should be very interesting for these guys.
Absolutely. And speaking of the wildcard race, I gave Flo a couple of suggestions. We'll have to see if he's implemented one of the suggestions I gave him or not. It'll remain to be seen. But I'm very excited for it, nevertheless. Now that I've read through the calendar, before we get going, how about you read through the lineups we got this season, Joe?
We might as well do that whilst we are on track, really, because I don't think we want to prolong this any further, to be honest with you. So I think I'll read
Okay,
that when we
fair
get on
point.
track.
Yeah, let's just take a quick look at the weather there for this test session, and let's get cracking.
And it's bone dry for this one, so no rain expected. Except for that little tiny bit there at plus 60, but I think we'll avoid that.
I think it's a 1% chance, so a marginal chance, really, as the screen just got a lot brighter, that loading screen we got there.
Yeah, this is the new graphics update that Flo has had. You may remember from the OC Classic session that he had on his personal YouTube channel. He's got this working now, so you may notice now that the graphics are a little bit more brighter on Flow streams than what they are from last season. But the only con of it is the loading screen does tend to do this. So it's the only real con of it, really. But apart from that, it's very pretty, I must say.
I guess you could say it's out of this world.
You could say that, yes. But
Nevertheless, talking about this series, it'll be something we haven't seen for a while. We've seen it before, of course. Now we're seeing it again. The reigning champion remaining in the series rather than being promoted to the top class or withdrawing altogether.
yes, indeed.
This
But here are
is
the brand
underway.
new cars. Here are the brand new cars, of course. And, well, I must say, they're looking very, very nice indeed. But we should be seeing them coming out quite soon indeed. But yes, you mentioned the first time that a champion is going to be in the series. We've got our first car going out on track. And trying to see who it is. It's Tobias Kress, in fact, in the
Welcome
MP
back.
Yes, indeed. We might as well go through the driver lineup we're after then. So, you mentioned earlier on, Rob, the first time in a long while, in fact, it's Chobot who's out first, actually. In the first time in a long while that a champion is coming back to defend its title, and it will be in the form of Aaron Curtis. He's staying at the series after just missing out on a top-class drive last season, and he's staying with the team that he won the title last season, which is Trident, and looking to see if he can become the first ever back-to-back champion, so to say. Maybe the only ever GP2 to F2 champion, who knows really. But anyway, he's got a new teammate this season in the form of Rose Henson, who moves up from Formula E, and they'll be hoping to have an impressive rookie season. Next up is Univirtuosi Racing, the defending teams champions, of course. But of course, both of the drivers who won the team title last season have gone off to the top class, of course. So they've got
They're a little bit busy setting pole positions and podiums there to hang around with these F2 guys.
As I've just realised, one of the drivers has got the wrong nationality, Flo. Joantis Martins is from Brazil, not Russia. So, you might as well get that. That's a bit of an error there. Anyway, as I was mentioning, Univirtuosi Racing, their new lineup consists of Gabriel Quintino, who moves over from, I believe it was the, if I'm not mistaken, the Campos team, and he is joined by Bent Valdinger, who is looking to break away from Prema, because it seems that we've had a bit of a Prema unluckiness in this series. Whether this will be the case in F2, we will have to wait and see.
Well, I wanted to touch on the topic of Valdinger because he came very close a few years ago to getting an Alfa Romeo seat and missed out on it. Decided to stick with Prema for a while, and things have just kept getting worse. Now, with brand new cars, he decided to make the switch, and he'll be hoping it pays off for him.
Indeed so. Next up, we're off to Carlin. Hento Senonome remains with the team for another season, this time as the Renault test driver, as opposed to the McLaren test driver last season. But he's got a new teammate in the form of Blake Moore, who moves over from the now-defunct BTCC series. And Blake Moore, like many, looking to impress in his first ever time in a Formula car. We'll get onto the lap times in a little bit, because I know there's some about to set right now.
106.5 exactly for Adam Chabot there.
ART Grand Prix are next, and they are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the only team on the grid to have retained their lineup from last season. And they are, of course, Henry Watzel and Luca Farina. Henry Watzel again staying at ART Grand Prix, and Luca Farina back for a second consecutive season at ART Grand Prix, looking to have a good season after it kind of tailed off in the second half of the season. Because at one point, of course, he was a championship contender before it all fell away. MP Motorsport are next. They have retained Ruslan Proxy for another season where he misses out on a top-class drive. Could this season finally be the season for him? Who knows, really. He's got a new teammate, though, in the form of Tobias Kress, who returns to the feeder series for the first time in, I want to say, since 2014, I want to say. So it's been a while since we've seen the German in this series, but finally, he's broken away from Formula E, and he's looking to do well on his return to the feeder series. Next up is Charoux's Racing System. Jose Frederic Suto had a bit of a shaky season last season. Well, he stays at the team for another season, but like with many, he's also got a brand new teammate in the form of Alexander Arnold, the man who finished runner-up last season in the Formula E Championship, and he's looking to make an impression here in Formula 2, driving for Charoux's. High-Tech Grand Prix are next. They were very impressive last season, it's fair to say, Rob.
Absolutely, a very solid debut. However, both their drivers have left the team.
Yes, indeed, for various reasons, of course. High-Tech Grand Prix's new lineup consists of Swedish drivers Samet Oskan, who moves over from Formula E, and his teammate consists of Brazilian Joantis Martins. Not Russian, as it is shown here on the graphic for some reason. It's Brazilian he's from. So the Brazilian Joantis Martins at High-Tech Grand Prix for this season alongside Samatoskin, another a man who moves over from the 9 defunct BTCC series. So we need to see how Martins does in this series. Next up is Campos Racing, and a bit of a regular now to F2. Dennis Graff moves over to the team. Quite been a little bit of a last race merchant, it's fair to say, because he seems to be doing very well in Brazil, but he'll be looking to finally have a very good season, maybe fight for the title this season. He's got a new teammate in the form of Gabriel Rico, who moves over from DTM. And who knows really what can happen with Campos this season? What can happen?
Yeah, well said. Meanwhile, in the Martinez and I'm not. Sorry, not Martinez. My God, Martins. Force of habit, but he's just improved to go fifth fastest.
Yes, now we get on to the final 3 teams. Dams are next, which is Dennis Graff's former employees. They've got a brand new lineup as well. Jafari Blackwood moves over from the now defunct BTCC series, and after being a bit of an outsider in that championship, given that his teammate Andrei Sazonov won that championship, Jafari will be looking to do well in Formula Cars this season. His teammate will consist of Fonchanek Kirshane, who was a bit of a controversial person when it came to being announced in F2, not because of his personality, he's a great guy, but mainly due to his results, really. So we'll have to wait and see how Kirshane does in Formula 2. But it should be quite interesting to see how Blackwood and Kirshane get on in their first ever seasons. Kirshane, of course, you may remember as well. He is the 2019 Indy 500 winner in quite a dramatic.
How can I forget? We commentated that amazing race.
Indeed so, and who knows really if there's going to be any more dramatic moments with Kirshane in this series. Next up, we go to Prema Racing, a team that has been a little bit of an unlucky team in the OC. Whether that's going to change in Formula 2, that will remain to be seen. But their lineup is very exciting, it's fair to say. They have got Hoang Min Nguyen, who moves over from, I believe it was Carlin last season, looking to build on what was a great season overall last season, but it kind of tailed off towards the end of last season. So whether he'll be able to get back on the men's this season, we'll have to wait and see. And his teammate consists of 2020 Formula E champion Agatina Bavona, the Italian driving for an Italian team, and Bavona looking to do well in Formula 2 so far, lying in third at the moment, and we're currently viewing him right now as I speak for a brief moment. And finally, a brand new team in F2. Gone are BWT HWA Race Lab, and in are Van Amersfoort Racing, the second Dutch team to enter the series. And very exciting right now. Adam Chobot joins the team after a brilliant season with High Tech, and he's looking to compete for the title again this season. And his teammate you're riding on board with is Bosch Daniel, the Lamborghini test driver, after finishing third in the Formula E Championship last season, pretty much redeeming himself from last season. And Bosch Daniel looking to do well in his debut season F2. And that is the lineup. Very exciting lineup, you'd have to say, Rob.
Absolutely. I'm very hyped for this season, and sorry if you were seeing some connection issues from my end, guys. Hopefully it's all better now. But yeah, this lineup, I'm gotta say, quite a lot of surprises, a lot of new faces, but a lot of people with great potential, so I can't wait to see what's gonna happen.
Indeed so, as Synonym makes his way then through the first few turns. As just trying to look to see how far away the stream's behind, because it seems like it's got the same issue as what it was in DTM, 30 seconds behind. I thought Flo would try and sort that issue out, but clearly it hasn't got around to doing that, because for some reason, what I'm looking at right now, where we're looking, it's 30 seconds in front of what the stream is. So, bit of a weird one really. But you may have noticed as well, whilst we are on the topic, everybody has now got custom helmets now, because we finally brought that back for this series, and it's very nice that every series has got their own, that every driver's got their own personal look now.
Yeah, it's a very, very nice touch. I quite like this helmet Agatina Bavona has right now. You also see the AGV logo, and Takuma Sato helmet that Santos Sonome has here. That's a classic. I quite like it a lot.
One thing I will point out as well, of course, the helmet that Bavona is using, it is of course a Valentino Rossi helmet. So I think it's quite obvious why he.
Here we have Alexander Arnold, no relation to the Liverpool footballer, with the Mark Webber helmet, and look at that, we got the Felipe Nasser helmet here for Gabriel Quintino.
I believe it's actually Gutierrez's helmet.
All right, it was Gutierrez. My bad.
Blackwood carrying a Paul de Resta helmet, it seems. So from the Force India days. Suto carrying the helmet that he used when he was the Williams test driver last season, that being Button's 2009 helmet. Curtis wearing a very custom Aston Martin helmet, it's fair to say, given the fact that he is also...
It looks
given that
like
he
an
is-
Indian flag a little bit.
looks kind of similar to a Giancarlo Fisichella design, to be honest with you. So kind of a nice touch there. But yeah, of course, he is the Aston Martin test driver, hence why the Aston Martin branding is on that one. He'll be looking to see if he can defend his title this season if he can. Duribush Daniel with a Sebastian Vettel helmet.
Having said about Curtis, the Indian flag, I just remember the Indian flag and the Irish flag have similar coloring, so that's why he picked those colors. It was just the shape of the colors made it look like it was the Indian flag, because that's horizontal and the Irish flag is vertical. Look at that Tobias Kress helmet he's got with the PS4 logo.
It's a Daniel Abt helmet, Blake Moore carrying a Mark Blundell helmet, Dennis Graff carrying a Nico Hulkenberg helmet, because, everybody loves Hulkenbach. And, of course, Bavona with a Valentino Rossi helmet. And that is a Nikita Mazepin helmet, although it looks too similar, in my opinion, to a Kevin Magnussen helmet, to be honest. So, I don't know... okay.
Of course.
Well, I'm just saying the overall design, of course.
Is that why he got? Is that why he got the Russian flag? All right.
So it...
Forgot.
We'll have that changed for tomorrow as well, because you
It's got his name written on it as well. Look near the bottom. Quite interesting.
Yes, it is. So anyway, but to me it looks too similar to a Kevin Magnussen helmet, to be honest with you.
Honestly, yeah, I thought it was Magnussen all along. Didn't even make me think it could be Mazepin.
But anyway, we've got custom helmets in this, of course, and one more thing to talk about with Formula 2 as well now, is Rico's got an Ayrton Senna helmet, some more has come out, Farina with a Sebastian Vettel helmet, another Sebastian Vettel helmet, there's another one with a Sebastian Vettel helmet, Rose Henson, a lot of Vettel helmets
popular.
In this, it's fair to say. Vettel seems to be a very popular driver in the series.
I mean, you have a lot of Vettel helmets you can choose from, considering just how much he loves turning up to every race with a brand new helmet.
Is a bit of a design freak, isn't he? Oscar with a 2000 Nick Heifeld helmet, a bit of a rare one, to be honest with you, as Curtis goes...
Maybe he's looking to be the next Mr. Consistent.
Maybe so. As mentioned earlier, Tsunonomi Tamio Sato.
There's a lockup for Hansen off the track, and very close to a teammate collision there for the Tridents.
Yeah, that was very close indeed. I don't think the Trident boss would have been happy if those two collided. Rule 1 in racing, of course, is never hit your teammate, and they did that very well to just about avoid each other.
Yeah, speaking of which, Curtis is doing quite well for himself right now, the reigning champion. Happy to second place. It sure is early days, of course, but it's early minutes, never mind. But yeah, it's always good to be competitive in testing. Even if it doesn't translate to anything, you just need that early confidence, as Graf has had a major lockup into turn 1. But speaking of turns here, we should ask the question, Joe, what do you think of our gracious venue that allowed us to test today, Lausitz Ring?
It's a good track. Obviously, it's a very short track, of course, but I know that either way, it's a very good track indeed. Quite a bit of overtaking. I mean, of course, you may remember in the past in the OC that Flo had some issues with this in DTM, but of course, after I think about a couple of years ago or a year ago, I can't exactly remember, when a new DAT file came out for this track, it's made it a lot better as well and more raceable. And first time that Formula 2 is driven around here, of course, and I'm too used to DTM being around here, to be totally honest with you, so it's a little bit of a strange sight seeing Formula 2 cars driving around here. I
still have a lot of unpleasant flashbacks from DTM here, as Ben Zwellinger just went into second place, with Ferrari darting to the right as the car was coming into the pits. Meanwhile, as you have Blake Moore, who will be doing the same thing at the end of this lap, meaning coming to the pits.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out with Evan as well, because he mentioned about why I think it's Oskin's helmet with the Nick Heifeld helmet, where it looks like it's in 144p. It's because when I got sent that file, it was quite small, so there wasn't really much I could do about it, really. So it was either a blurry image or nothing, really. So that's why it's a bit blurry. So, but hopefully it's not too bad.
Yeah, I think it should be all right. As here we go with Blake Moore darting to the left. Ooh, that could have been nasty. This is a very entertaining pit lane entry. It's quite long, it's got a few corners for itself, really. Kind of reminds me of the Vale and Club section in Silverstone, but mirrored.
Indeed, and well, it's a very unique pit lane entrance. It's fair to say as well. As
Totally.
you mentioned, as you mentioned. One thing, of course, that is changed for Formula 2 this season, a new performance stats system as well, of course. Obviously, DTM has not adopted this, only Formula 2 has. So they are going to
It's
be
been increased from before, I believe, from P1 from 10 to 15. So if it can get quite lopsided, it should be entertaining. Or was it to 20?
I think I think he's just up to it because it used to be. I think it was the top 5 that got something. I might be wrong on that. But I know for a fact he has increased the statistics for wherever each driver finishes, etc., etc. So it will be interesting to see how that affects during the course of this season. And we've just seen so far during this session with these new cars, people really trying to push the limits and see what these cars can do. Really, Rob.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, it's uncharted territory. Nobody has any data on these cars, and there's only one way to collect that data, which is of course to risk it and try to push it. See how far it can go.
Yep. But whilst we're speaking, of course, we've got Graphies at the top of the timing sheet by
Blackwood's
one.
just got an improvement, as here we have Darabosh Daniel, or Daniel Darabosh if you go by Western naming convention. Nevertheless, he's improved on his previous lap. As Gabriel Quintino goes into second, and Sonome has a little bit of understeer on the approach for this little corner.
Currently 2-3 at the moment for the 2 Uni Virtuosi drivers, followed by Aaron Curtis. So so
Looks
far
like
looking
looks like the new driver lineup didn't exactly dampen their spirits.
indeed, as it looks like Sinner is about to be overtaken here by one of the Van Amersfoort cars, that being
Yes,
David Daniel.
Darabosh. Indeed.
And well, he's clearly not enjoying being impeded at the moment by the Japanese driver. So Daniel, of course, obviously his debut in Formula 2. Obviously had a bit of a tricky career up until this point, but made amends last season in Formula E. And
What's else gone into third in the
meantime?
meantime? But yeah, I totally agree with you on Darabosh. I think he's shown some good potential last season as he's had a major lockup here. And this is not the first time this season we've seen a Renault and the Lamborghini fight. Australia front row, anybody?
Indeed so, and it's quite ironic as well that Lamborghini and Renault also carried the 2 drivers who got promoted last season, who were ironically driving for Uni Virtuosi as well. So
Yeah, indeed. As here I have Agatino Bifona who's just gone out on track. He's impeding a car behind him, but I think he'll be able to remain in front of that guy for the next lap.
currently 6th and 8th for the 2 Premier drivers at the moment. Bavona currently in 8th position. Of course, he won the Formula E Championship last season after a dominant display, and I'm expecting some good things for him this season, given he dominated Formula E. So we'll have to wait and see how he does this season.
Well, speaking of Bivona, now he's going to have to race against the guy whose win record he broke in Formula E last season, that being Tobias Kress, of course. But yeah, Bivona, I did not expect this Formula E season at all. It was absolutely overwhelming. Nobody stood a chance against him, really, not even his own teammate. So yeah, Agatino Bivona had a very, very impressive season, and I think his promotion to F2 is well deserved. But F2 is something completely different. Just because you're competitive in one series does not necessarily mean you'll be quick in the other, as Hansen has just improved to go 18th. But yeah, Bivona, he can be quick in Formula E. Let's see if he can be quick in Formula 2 as well, as Luca Farina has a little bit of a luck up and towards the hairpin.
Indeed so, and he's
And
currently
towards the
running.
first corner, sorry.
So I do want to get your opinion, Rob. Of course, I mean you obviously saw these liveries, of course, when the news video came out. But seeing them out in the flesh now, what do you make of them?
I think they're quite colorful, but not in a bad way. It's of course a new experience, so it'll take a while to wire them into my brain to remember which is which, as Darabosh and Tsunami have come into the pits together. But yeah, these liveries are very, very good. If you want me to give my honest opinion, as here we have Adam Chobot and the other VAR passing Arnold.
Indeed so. You're probably wondering why I muted myself there, Rob. It was actually because I wanted to actually hear what these new cars sounded like, because they do have some new sounds, of course.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, so they sound like, I think they sound like the V8 engines from the top, from what the top class had. So they sound a little bit similar to that. I don't know if Flo's done some adjustments to it.
In the meantime, Blake Moore's improved up into P9. And speaking of Blake Moore, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but he was originally not supposed to be on the F2 grid. Originally, he was supposed to go to a driver who hadn't been driving in any tier up until that point, that being Gwen Quanmin. However, Flo had a change of mind and pretty much vetoed that and decided to give Blake Moore the opportunity, as Leontas Martins has had a little bit of an understeer into the chicane of turn 1 2.
It's not the full truth, though, Rob. To be honest with you, it was mainly because when we did the lineups originally, Flo actually wasn't there in the meeting because he was doing
Oh,
something.
right.
It was me, Yuri,
I was
and
just
Evan that
sharing
were
what
doing.
I knew, so
It
obviously
was
you guys
me.
have a much
Well,
clearer
wait,
picture than I do.
it was actually me, Yuri, and Evan that was in the call, and we were doing the lineups on his behalf, really. And basically, an error on our part. Thankfully, Flo, the host, noticed this. We didn't actually spot Blake Moore's name. To be quite honest with you. So if Blake's watching, I do apologise, but luckily Flo noticed your name, hence why you got the seat in the end, because we said that we would do the lineup and then Flo would do some last-minute check-ins
Luck
to
up
see
for
if there was
Graf.
anybody he wanted to put in, and he noticed that Blake Moore was there, so he ended up giving him the Carlene seat alongside Hento Sinonome. So
Well, I've told you guys what I knew. Now we've got the full picture, so thank you, Joe, for your input.
yes, indeed. So luckily, Flo noticed Blake's name in the end there. Then otherwise, that would have been a
Yeah.
bit of a problem there. But anyway,
We have
as
Gabriel Rico making the step up after a not too great season in DTM. He's hoping for some new fresh air here in F2, and right now he's in P7. Sure, it may just be testing, as Valdinger has a major moment there. And towards turn 4, that is, or no, turn 3.
yes, indeed, but luckily he didn't go off the track like we saw with Rose Henson a little bit earlier on. You may have noticed as well the Univirtuosis, both of them with different liveries, of course. You would have seen with Quintino, he's got the Banco, the Brazilian bank sponsor, which I keep forgetting the name of, and of course Valdinger, just like we saw on the Premier last season, carrying over the Sega sponsorship.
Indeed. Valdinger, a change of pace for him. Let's see if we mean that as an expression or literally. If he can improve on his pace from last season, of course.
Yes, as Bavona now makes his way towards the left-hander. Of course, if you've watched any DTM races here, of course, you may know that this corner can produce a little bit of action at times. But it seems so far that the F2 drivers are keeping it quite tidy at the moment. Obviously, because they're not in race conditions, of course. This is only a testing session. But of course, we are here at Euro Speedway today. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll be off at Imola. And for anybody who's wondering which Imola we are using, it is the new version of Imola. Because of course, the newer version of Imola recently got released for Grand Prix 4. So you won't see that last chicane anymore.
Finally, the raceable version is available. And on the topic of DTM racing here, Joe, what's your number one memory from here, from DTM's races?
I don't think there's really one that sticks out in my mind, to be quite honest with you. But if I have to say one,
Well, I've got one. Meanwhile, Daniel Darabosh has improved but stays in 15th.
what's the one that you were going to say there, Rob?
Oh, it's one from 2010. It's a pretty famous barrel roll, which happened at turn 1 to Nitsu, of course, when his car just rolled back onto the track on itself, and Bruno the Barros made the Tag Life video of it, I think. No, Flo made the Tag Life video, but Bruno was the one who commentated it. It was quite fun, as Ruslan Protsuk improves to go into 9 fastest.
Yeah, and on the topic of Ruslan Proxy, you might as well talk about some of the drivers. Of course, Ruslan, once again, missing out on a top-class drive, and you would imagine, given the last 2 years, whoa, Danny gets a little bit...
Darabosh is going very wide.
I think it might have been Felix that made the Fug Life video, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Right, it was him. Yes.
So, as we saw Daniel, but as we were saying earlier, Protsuk, could the third time lucky perhaps for Ruslan, of course, because he's come very close to getting a top class drive on a few occasions. Who knows, really? Could this season finally be the season where he cracks it, or could he be in for a tough season given these are new cars? We'll have to wait and see, of course.
Well, on the topic of Ruslan Protsuk, as Gabriel Coutinho improves to go to second, I want to say Protsuk, you could say he's been a hungry merchant, considering Hungaroring is the only track he's ever won at. There's a little bit of a problem because Budapest isn't on the calendar anymore, so he's gonna have to win elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe it could be the wildcard track. We'll have to wait and see, really. But yeah, on the topic of that wildcard track, of course, you mentioned it was obviously your idea, which Flo approved of. I want to obviously we know at the end of the day it's all going to be Flo's decision as to who on what track he chooses. It's obviously going to be his decision, no influence at all. But if you had to guess which track it might be, what do you think? What would you like to see be the wildcard track, in your opinion, Rob?
Jeddah.
Jeddah. Oh, okay, very interesting. Luckily,
Yeah,
there is now actually a Jeddah on Grand Prix.
I know
Formula.
because we tried it.
It recently got released this year as well, along with the Miami track as well. Quite oddly, as well, along with the new version of Melbourne, which, as we know, Yuri did trial out, but one corner was giving him a bit of a headache, hence why we ended up using the old version of Melbourne. Hopefully, one day the newer version gets used in the future, but yeah, that's that really.
Yeah, indeed. Knock on wood there.
Melbourne 22, that is. So,
As your China has improved to go to P7 as the Thai driver.
As a lock up there on the topic of Proxy, he's just locked up there and just
barely
about
get it out of the wall there as that Trident overtook him. There was Curtis making his way past. And these guys were in the championship hunt, of course, all the way to the last race. Brutzuk had an outside shot. And look how close he came, not just to the wall, but also to Curtis.
Indeed, and very, very close indeed to disaster, but thankfully he managed to keep that one out of the wall there. And of
Looks
course,
like these cars are quite difficult to handle. I don't think there's one driver who hasn't made a mistake so far this session. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but we've seen a lot of errors.
Indeed so. Now, of course, you would have noticed that Proxy has got the Red Bull livery. We revealed that in the news vid, but of course, I also mentioned as well that they could also change their colours on it, and this is one of those examples, of course, the colours matching the MP Motorsport car, and looks pretty...
It's a very nice touch, I have to admit. As we're on board with Daniel Darabosch. He's about to finish his lap and start a new one. So, Joe, what do you say? You take us through an onboard lap of his, or maybe not, because automatic camera decides to be a pain.
As a double lock-up there for Joseph Frederick Suto. As mentioned earlier, all the drivers just seem to be pushing a little bit too hard. But we're going to look at Suto, who's, well, we're not going to name more. But Keo Shani, meanwhile, gone up into second place. If we now look at his teammate, Jafari Blackwood, who currently finds himself in 12th position. But so far, Keo Shani having a very good session at the moment.
Absolutely. His biggest claim to fame is the OCC 500, the victory in 2019. Only problem is that the Indy 500 doesn't count towards ratings or signups or anything like that. It just counts for pride, and he's won that. And yeah, I think George Inat, once you get some results that properly count for ratings and signups or whatever, and F2 is a very good place if you want to improve on your career.
Indeed so, and on the topic of the Indy 500, I would imagine that the sign-ups for that will open after the Chinese Grand Prix, because they haven't been launched at the moment. He said it would either be after the Australian-Chinese Grand Prix, so I'd imagine it's going to be after the Chinese Grand Prix that the Indy 500 sign-ups will open, as Moore sets the same time as KF Shani at the moment, but of course KF Shani set the time first, so he stays in second place. And,
still, good improvement for the English driver, as here we have Blackwood.
He's just making his way through the left-hander now then, trying to get as close to the wall on the outside as possible now then, as he makes his way through the banking, and now making his way down the pit straight. And
of course, that banking is part of the tri-oval circuit layout, which is quite entertaining. And yeah, Lausitz ring, I think this track has a little bit of everything, really.
Indeed so. A lot of high-speed corners as well, a long straight, and a lot of technical parts of the track as well, even though the track is quite short as well. Of course, DTM don't use this version of Euro Speedway anymore. In fact, they actually cut through that first chicane. They actually used the banking before going on to an extended part of the track, really. So
we have George Inat racing with Hento Serenome in front of him, and being a little bit impeded in the last sector here. We'll have to see if we can get past them onto the main straight.
It's just going around the last few turns now then. So you could say as well this track could be also a good track to practice some slipstreaming as well, because of course given that it's located onto an oval as well, it's obviously the best place where you can practice some slipstreaming as well. As KF Shani looks like
say that.
He'll be looking to try and pass Sinano now into the first corner. It looks like he's already got the move done. As we look at Bavarono, he's getting a little bit wiggly coming out of that left-hander there as there's two cars behind.
That exit wasn't very clean. Looked a little bit unsettled, the rear end. Let's see how much time he's going to lose. Ooh, once again, turning in a little slowly there, and maybe trying to do some work on the tires. I don't know, just gather some data on the wear. As Bivona does not improve on that lap, 7 tenths down.
As we now look at Bosch Daniel now then, who just makes his way out of the right-hander, approaching the end of Sector 2, as Chobot, meanwhile, only goes up into 19th position. So Chobot, I don't know whether he's just doing long runs, but at the moment, not really in a position that I was expecting him to be, as meanwhile, the two Charouz drivers currently at occupying the back spots at the moment in this testing session.
Yeah, Charouz had a very up and down season last time. Of course, they picked up 3 wins with Kyle Burns, who was the breakout star last season, and one was just Frederic Soto. But Soto struggled after his win in Portugal. And Burns, I have no complaints about Burns. He was brilliant last season. Only problem, he forgot to sign up or something. So he's not on the grid this season. If he signed up, he would have surely been retained. But he didn't, so Charouz have to deal with that problem.
Yep, so yeah, he didn't sign up for any series, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's unfortunately we're not going to be able to see him on the grid this season, despite the fact that he had a much improved season in 2020, but he's not on the grid.
Of course, you'll remember his brilliant victory at Laguna Seca, falling off the desperate charge of Rahul Patel, and the victory that ended up determining the championship, as Patel only lost by 3 points. Chobot has improved yet again, meanwhile. As has Arnold, but Arnold is still at the back, 3 tenths off the next car.
Indeed. So he's the only driver at the moment to be over a second behind the top man at the moment, which is Dennis Graff, who's currently 1 tenth quicker than both Keoshani and Moore. Both of them, of course, setting an identical time.
Henson crossing the line. Is this an improvement? No, half a second down.
Henson stays in 20th for the moment, so Henson's still trying to get up to speed with these Formula 2 cars. As Martins, meanwhile, goes up into 12th position. The Brazilian driver slots in behind Ruslan Proxiuk. As of course, one thing I do want to point out as well, if anybody didn't see, Evan recently made a F2 season preview really on his little blog. So if you haven't seen it, go and check it out.
I read it. It was quite nice. I think it was a little bit harsh on some drivers, but overall it was very, very nicely written. And they tried to adapt to the fact that it's a fictional universe. So I tried to write it from the perspective of that fictional universe, not trying to keep to the canon, if you were to call it like that. But yeah, very, very entertaining article that was, and if you haven't read it already, I suggest you do, as Arnold's found in our 10th, but still in last.
Indeed, as we now ride on board with Aaron Curtis, the defending champion, as somebody just goes into the pits there you just saw on the left-hand side, as he just makes his way through the final few turns. And do you think Curtis could potentially challenge for the championship again this season, Rob, and potentially be the first back-to-back champion in this series, or do you think somebody will beat him to the punch this time by?
I mean, you know who the obvious favorite is heading into the season. However, throughout all of Curtis' career, throughout all the tiers he's ever raced in, there's been one thing he's never done. He has never won a race in any category. He managed to win the title last season without taking a race win, being the second driver after Will Sanderson, 2015, I think, in ETM, to win a title without a race win. But yeah, Curtis, I think, sure, if he does his best, he may be able to pull the 12th-second title, but he's going to be very consistent, and he might want to make sure he gets a win this time.
Indeed, and it was 2016, in fact, that Julius Anderson.
Right, my bad. Because 2015 was Olga, not,
Zolga, of course, for anybody wondering, is currently racing in World Champ Car this season. And
Curtis, meanwhile, is up on his lap time, so we should keep an eye on him. He might improve as he crosses the line in a few seconds.
Just keep an eye on the timing tower then on the left-hand side to see if Curtis's name moves up or not. So Chobot just making his way towards the end of the second sector. And Curtis, has he crossed the line yet?
Garabot has improved in the meantime. I think Curtis has gone across the line. He may, but well, the gain he had in S2 was marginal, so he probably didn't improve.
No, I think he just lost time. Meanwhile, we're running on board with Adam Chobot, who so far has not made his way up through the field at the moment in the brand new Van Amersfoort team. And what are you expecting from this team overall, Rob, in their debut season?
Well, they've got a solid driver. Chobot, of course, was there, spearheaded the high-tech debut, and now he's going to hope he can do the same and spearhead the VAR debut. He had a very solid first half of the season. He didn't win any races, But in the first part, he was extremely consistent, which left him with a shot at the title all the way to last qualifying session. So yeah, Chabot, I have high expectations for him, and I think he has high expectations for himself as well. As for his teammate though, Daniel Darabosch, I think he'll try to learn the ropes, but right now he's P9 in the test, so I don't think he'll take too long to learn.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, of course. Daniel at the moment currently in ninth position, so far having a good testing session, but of course we'll have to wait and see if he can transfer that over into Imola tomorrow, a completely different track, of course, to Euro Speedway. So
just a reminder, of course, that testing, while having good performance in testing may help you out, especially the driver confidence and the like, as Serena has just improved. Even if it may help your confidence, in the end testing means nothing. And you know that very well because look what happened last season. Alex Broster topped both days of testing, but in the actual season, he struggled quite dramatically.
Yes, indeed, and hence why he's not in Formula 2 this season.
Looks like Ross Hansen has been impeded there by the car coming into the pits, as Dennis Graf is just entering the pits as well now.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, obviously Alex Broster, of course, competing in Formula E this season with Envision Virgin Racing. His teammate, another driver who's come over from GP2, that being Wojciech Kulizek as well. Kulizek, of course, also having a very tricky season
The two of them finished last in GP2 last time out, so yeah, I'm afraid it didn't go too well for them.
And they're looking to rebuild themselves, hopefully, in Formula E this season with Envision Virgin Racing. We just saw that Blake Moore there just overtook one of the ART Grand Prix cars. The ART Grand Prix livery, I think it's fair to say, is quite a unique one, fair to say. I do believe that it is actually based on a Lotus livery, if I'm not mistaken, because I think it's
quite a different livery from what we've seen before, considering their color scheme involved black and red earlier, but now it's a whole different livery. It's almost unrecognizable at first, but it is very bloody nice, that livery is. In our Grand Prix, they had the season of building last time out, and they're going to keep their lineup, which is quite experienced, of Watson and Farina. They won 2 races with Farina, and they got some more podiums with Watzel, and most notably, I think the most dramatic flashpoint was at Spa when Watzel was impeding Farina, who as a result wasn't able to challenge Patel for the win, as Hansen has just improved up into 12th place. But yeah, our Grand Prix, only team to retain their driver lineup, they'll be hoping to make some progress. Farina, of course, he won 2 races, so we know he can have the speed. I think he just needs to work on some consistency, and he could be a championship contender this time around.
As we just saw there, that Blake Moore's teammate, Hento Senonome, has just gone out onto the racetrack, and obviously the best way you can tell the difference between Moore and Senonome. Senonome, of course, has got yellow on his car and
most notably on the nose.
Yes, indeed, and Blake Moore, of course, has got green on his car, so notable difference there as he's just making his way to two. And here's Tobias Kress. Might as well talk about him as well because he's been in Formula E for quite a while now, but for the first time since 2014, he is now back in the feeder series. And of course, his best moment in the OC, of course, being in 2015 when he won the Formula E Championship. And he did have a few dip seasons, it's fair to say. I mean, 2016, he obviously failed to retain the title, but he still had quite a good season. And then he had a run of horrible pace for the next two. 2019, of course, he was teammates with Amelia Wilson, and to be fair, I think he was quite unlucky in that season, to be fair, because I think he showed some brilliant pace, but for whatever reason, he always seemed to have the mechanical failures, whereas Amelia Wilson, for some reason, didn't. And then in 2020, he had a better season, it's fair to say, and now finds himself back in Formula 2 and looking to see if he can do a good job with MP Motorsport.
Indeed, unlike some suggestions I've read in our Discord not too long ago, these drivers can keep going as long as they want. It's not like we have actual ages or anything like that, so people retire when they want to. And even though some may think Kress is past his prime or that he's washed or something like that, I don't think so. I think he's still got a lot he can show, and he's trying to rebuild his career, of course. And in F2, like I said earlier, no better place to do that than F2. Let's see what Kress can do, of course, this season.
Indeed, he's obviously got a very quick teammate as well in the form of Ruslan Protsiuk, so he's got a bit of a yardstick to compare himself with. I would say learn from, but he's obviously an experienced veteran in the OC, so I don't think he really needs to learn any more tips from Ruslan.
The big question really is, can you teach an old dog new tricks or not? It'll be very interesting to find that answer.
Indeed, as Kress now then just making his way towards the final few turns on the racetrack, 6 tenths down on Graf in the second sector. 3 Germans on the grid this season. I think that will give Flo a bit of a smile on his face.
We also got 3 Brazilians, if I'm not mistaken.
I was going to say, we've got Dennis Graf, Tobias Kress, and Alexander Arnold, who are on the grid this season for the German side. You mentioned there were 3 Brazilians on the grid. I think you are correct. Gabriel Quintino, Gabriel Rico, so 2 Gabriels on the grid this season, and Johannes Martins. So,
yep, that's right.
What do you mean he's Russian? Oh, sorry, he's a troll. Yeah, because he's got the wrong flag. So, yeah, as Kress now then makes his way towards the oval section of the track. It's only a brief period that you go onto this part of the oval, because then you head yourself back onto the road course part. So yeah, it's a bit of a short stretch, really. I think if you go a little bit further down, though, there is a longer variant of the road course. So I do believe that was being developed at one point, but it just seems like that project's kind of gone quiet a little bit. Hence why this is. I think there is actually 2 versions of Euro Speedway, but I believe the other one is actually the oval, not the other road course, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
Joe, there is something I wanted to ask you from earlier, if you don't mind. You asked me what I'd like to see for the wildcard race, and I said Jeddah. And now I want to ask you, what would you like to see in the wildcard race? Of course, there got from round 10. And I also want to ask you guys in the chat, let us know what you'd like to see as a wildcard race.
Well, I would say Aragon, but I think Flo would probably kill me if I say that, so I might as well try to go for something.
Well, you've already said it, so prepare yourself.
So I think I might go with something else other than Aragon. What would I go with that's not Aragon? No, I would quite like to see what the Miami race looks like around here for Grand Prix 4. I think that would be quite interesting.
The real layout or Dodge Island?
The real one. It recently got released. Before, so not the Dodge Island one. That's one. Of course, one thing to point out as well: fictional tracks are allowed for Formula 2. We should point this out, but they have to be realistic, of course, as mentioned. So things like Morello and that counts.
So we're not gonna have that volcano circuit anytime soon.
Definitely not. No, I think there'd be a bit of a problem with that in real life, Rob. If I'm being totally honest, I can't really put my finger on what that would be, though.
I think very high track temperatures.
The engines would probably struggle, I think, with that track.
Yeah, indeed. Well, not just the engines, but nevertheless. Flo just said, I said fictional is allowed, but not 2 weird ones. So yeah, just as we said.
Yeah, but anyway, Crest is coming into the pits this lap and finishing off those sorts of runs.
Some interesting info in the chat. Blake said he'd like to go Walton Park for the wild card.
Well, if Yuri was here, I think he'd be chasing you down, given what happened in BTCC. But I don't really know what it's like with these cars, to be honest with you, with Formula cars, because we've noticed that some tracks seem to work well with touring car physics, and others work well with Formula physics, and there are obviously a majority of them work for both. But yeah, it's kind of a bit of a balancing act with that one. We know for a fact that Montreal seems to work better with touring car physics, hence why DTM likes to keep going there. We also noticed that the Nürburgring works fine with Formula cars, so yeah, it's kind of a balancing act, really.
Yeah, neat.
So, meanwhile, we've got Blake Moore, who's now trying to overtake one of the high-tech cars. I believe that's Samat he's trying to pass. I think that's the Nick Heidfeld helmet. So, yes, and it is Samat Oskin. Oskin, of course, had a bit of a decent season in Formula E, it's fair to say. And if I'm not mistaken, was it he or Silver that was the one that had the unfortunate blowout in Miami? I think you were on commentary for that one, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Silva. He was leading the race.
It was the other Jaguar then. Fair enough. I knew it was a Jaguar. I'm just trying to figure out which one it was. I do know that Oskin did win races in Formula E, and he showed himself to be pretty quick, but I think at times he was a little bit, inconsistent. So whether he'll be able to translate that into Formula 2, we'll have to wait and see, of course.
Well, F2 is a whole different kind of gravy, so if you can or not, I have no idea, but there's only one way to find out.
Oh, indeed, as look at Gabriel Rico now then, who's just making his way towards the hairpin, of course, making his way over from DTM, and of course being Dennis Graff's teammate for this season as he comes into the pits. But I believe this is the first time that Rico's driven a Formula car in the OC, because the previous 2 seasons he's been competing in touring cars. So it'll be interesting to see if Formula cars work out for him. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, well, he had a good season in BTCC, but didn't have the better seasons in DTM. But we'll have to wait and see, really, how he does in Formula cars, because we've seen, and a good example with Rahul Patel, really. Some seem to be good with Formula cars, others seem to be better with touring cars. So, and Rahul Patel has mentioned his previous example of that. He wasn't the best when it came to touring cars, but when you put him in a Formula car, he was just a monster.
Yeah, indeed, Patel. It took him a while to get adjusted, to get up to speed with the OC as a whole. But once he got to speed, my goodness, only driver in OC history to have 100% pole position rate in the top class, so don't scoff at him. As Rose Hansen, in the meantime, is just about the 10th down.
Rose Hansen currently in 11th position, a 7th and 11th for the two 7-11.
In the chat, meanwhile, Bent gave his opinion. He says the wildcard track might be Manicourt. It's been a while since we saw a race for GP2 there.
Daniel getting a little bit loose there. Luckily, he kept that one out of the wall, but that was a bit of a mistake there for the Hungarian.
Obviously, still trying to adapt, and a lock-up mid-corner. There's no way that could have been good. I skipped out the barrier, so at least there's that. Yeah, Ben said we haven't had a race at Manicourt in GP2 for a long while. There's a good reason for that. Manicourt is just completely horrible. Last time we raced there, we didn't have a single overtake. So I pray to God and to Flo and to Jasperian that the wildcard race won't be Manicourt, of course.
I love how Jesus always is a meme when it comes to praying to a god. But anyway, Manicourt has always been known for a track that's not very good when it comes to racing.
Martin said just improved to go into P12.
I do believe, in my honest opinion, when people talk about how Paul Ricard is a crap track and people say bring back Manicourt, Manicourt is very overrated. Because from what I remembered from it, apart from when it had a wet race in 1999, that was a good race, don't get me wrong. But when it was dry, it was never the best ever race, really.
Yeah,
even
indeed.
2000, where obviously in 2000 in the dry, it was remembered, of course, for Coulthard hand gestures to Michael. But apart from
I remember from 2002, Kimi Räikkönen losing the win to Schumacher from oil due to oil and to an oil spill, and Schumacher clinching the title there. I guess the most famous would be his win in 2004 of that 4-stop strategy, which was quite crazy. But yeah, Manicourt has only ever been good for strategy, not for on-track racing.
Can thank Ross Brawn for that one, because I think it was his idea with the 4-stop. So
yeah, indeed. Though if there's one good thing I have to say about Manicourt, is that the IFMC race in season 3 was fucking wonderful. That's all I'm going to say, and I know it just got demonetized, but who cares?
Yeah, oddly enough, I noticed that as well. It seemed that Grand Prix 3 produced better races at Manicourt than it does with Grand Prix 4.
Oh, Graf just gone off track, rejoined safely though. That was close. Quite a big train of cars we got around here, meanwhile.
Second person we've seen making a mistake going through into turn 3 there. But yeah, as I'm saying, for some reason, Manicourt seems to produce better races on Grand Prix 3 than it does with Grand Prix 4. It's a bit of a weird one, really. I don't really know why it is. I know both of them have got different physics, but surely physics don't change too much.
From my honest opinion, every single race we've had at Manicourt in FMC was an absolute classic.
Yeah, indeed. And unfortunately, it can never be replicated on Grand Prix 4. And speaking of French tracks, of course, we know that DTM is going to Dijon, so that'll be the third French track that I think we've visited with the OC, unless you count. Actually, no, it isn't. That's a lie. It's Powell we've been to.
We visited Pau, didn't we?
We visited Powell for Formula E. And speaking on the topic of
Dijon, isn't that track just a minute long?
It's the one that Billy Munger won that.
Right.
So it's quite.
Speaking of France,
it actually hosted the first ever Grand Prix, that track did. So it's got that for its historic nature.
Well, yeah, that's true. Oh, major lockup for Graf. Once again, struggling with the car balance right now. And in the chat, Blake said, Manicourt will be lights out and the way we sleep.
Yeah, pretty much. Speaking on the topic of French tracks, because that's just triggered something. According to one of the websites, you know how we've got the Uberno Ficticio track on...
Wasn't that supposed to be in Italy?
I believed it was in Italy, but according to one website, it's meant to be in France. So I don't really know who to believe with that one. I think I'm just going to keep it as an Italian race, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that sounds good. Because the word itself, urbano, is an Italian word, not a French word. So yeah,
Yeah,
as
that's
Milo
what I
Darabosh is
thought.
having a nice little tussle here with the Campos, I believe. Onto
That's
the
what I
banking.
believe when I first brought it into the OC. So that's why I claimed the track was in Italy. But goes.
As here goes Darabosh trying to make the move, having to back out of it.
Yes, indeed. It seems those two are battling quite hard, really. As we've got a trainer cars actually down here as well. Towards the back of it, we've got Sam Toscan. Here is Jafari Blackwood, coming over from the now defunct BTCC series. Finally made his debut in the OC last season. First time he's going to be driving in a Formula car in the OC. But he was very quick in BTCC last season. Was in the title fight with his teammate Andrei Sazonov, but in the end he managed, after a bit of a tricky end to the season, he ended up falling down to 5th in the Drivers' Championship. But a lot of expectations on the first Jamaican driver in the OC.
Indeed, I think Blackwood's main highlight was the brilliant drives he had at Brands Hatch Indy when he won both races, of course. I remember because I commentated those. It was quite fun, and Blackwood, he wasn't exactly the most consistent, but when he needed to be fast, he was fast, as Bartek locks up there into turn 1. And I think Blackwood is quite famous for is from losing out on that hit. Someone's gone off. Ooh, Quintino that was.
Third driver that's gone off actually down at turn 3. It looks like a similar error.
Yeah, indeed. But as I wanted to say about who were we talking about? Oh yes, about Blackwood. He's quite famous for losing out that dead heat at Alton Park to Igor Peter by just 3 tenths of a second at the checkered flag. Yeah, Quintino has just gone wide earlier, so these cars are quite difficult to handle.
Yeah, I remember that BTCC race. I think it is the closest ever finish we've had in OC history. So
I remember last season at Monza, Santino Andreoli missed out on 10th place. So I don't even remember who it was, but he only missed out by 1,000th of a second. Still, that wasn't for the win, of course. So the closest fight for the win has to be that BTCC race.
Yes, indeed. And whether we'll ever see the likes of that again.
Chuba has just improved.
Chobot's gone up into 16th position as Moore gets a little bit of understeer going through into
There's
the
a theory going around in the scientific circles. I don't even remember what it's called. But if you give enough monkeys enough time on a typewriter, eventually one monkey will type the entirety of William Shakespeare's works. So if you give it enough time, we will get another close finish like that.
I'm aware of that quote, yes, Rob.
Yeah, I just forgot what it was called, you know. In any case, we have Blackwood, Heaton, and Timper on that lap.
There's a lock up there for Blake Moore. As mentioned, we're seeing a lot of drivers locking up in this session.
It's quite weird because we don't really have hard braking zones here, emphasis on the word hard. Of course, you still have to brake a lot, but it's not like tracks like Canada, where you have major deceleration moments.
Yeah, it's interesting, really. Of course, these cars are all brand new, of course, to the OC, so it might be the case of these drivers just trying to get used to this new bit of equipment, and hence why we're seeing a lot of lockups. Whether we'll see that at Imola tomorrow, we'll have to wait and see.
Imola is a very different circuit compared to this, but of course, some of the corners there are quite tricky, even for very experienced real-life drivers. So, yeah, I'm very excited to Imola. About Imola, I should say.
Yes, indeed. It'll be interesting to see how it will look, of course, especially it'll be the first time we're using the current version of Imola in the OC, because previous times we've used the one that has the last chicane. So it will be interesting as we ride on board with Jafari Blackwood. Just over 10 minutes to go in this practice session, and you may have noticed as well that not all the drivers have got checkered flags at their names. That's because if you look at the top of your screen,
99.
Flo has got it set to 99, or I think infinity, if I'm not mistaken. So we shouldn't have anyone finishing early. So
still, we had checkered flags last time in DTM, so this must be an impromptu solution.
Potentially, but as Blackwood now then just comes out of the first part of the road course section, goes back onto the oval for a brief period before he makes his way to the left-hander.
Indeed.
He now just makes his way through these section of corners. Blackwood currently in where is he at the moment? He's currently in as Chobot goes.
Well, he's just lost a place thanks to Chobot improving, so Blackwood is in 17th.
So Chobot going up into 15th position there. So far,
I really have to say, Joe, the top 20 is within 6 tenths of a second. You just have to feel this very, very close. Of course, this has to do with the cars being so tricky to handle, so that no one's quite been able to master them just yet and get a huge edge over everyone else. This is very encouraging to say. If Arnold went 4 and a bit hundredths quicker, everybody would be within a second, which is amazing.
one thing I do hope, though, and knowing Grand Prix 4, this probably ends up doing the opposite of what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the Mechachrome engine in the back of this car is not like the real-life Formula 2. Just saying.
I hope it's going to be more reliable.
Yeah, although to be fair, we did have some reliability problems with the last car, so I wonder if that's going to carry over with this one.
I think I wouldn't say the threat, but the prospect of reliability problems can spice up any race because, of course, it can create some surprise results. Of course, as Bivon is the fourth car to go wide there at turn 3.
The 2020 Formula E champion pushing a little bit too hard at the moment and going.
And if you remember, of course, at Brno last season, Mats Wallinger was leading comfortably until he had a brake failure. Of course, that was pretty devastating for him, and I'm sure nobody wants to go out from the lead with a mechanical problem. But that problem allowed Hento Stonome to take advantage and to seize his first win. So, yeah, it's good for some, bad for others. But the prospect of better reliability for some people can really spice up the field and generate very, very entertaining results. As Darabosh has now gone wide. What is going on with cars at that corner? Or I should say at any corner, because we've seen so many errors.
Yeah, we have seen in DTM before people tend to make mistakes.
He just took too much curb there on the inside earlier, looking to the left-hander, and just threw him offline. Car bottomed out a little bit.
I will say, though, he didn't go as wide as what we've seen with others.
Oscar improves to set at the same time as Martins.
So we've got two sets of times that are the same. You've got Kershani and Moore that are shared with second place. And now you've got Martins and Oskin shared for 13th. And now that's been broken by Martins.
Speaking of Martins,
he goes second.
And he's gone just in front of those two other guys. He's gone in front of Kochina and Moore. But yeah. So we had them tied for just a few seconds. Only a little bit, but thank goodness this isn't the qualifying session.
Yeah, indeed. As we have just over 7 minutes to go in the first day of pre-season testing for Formula 2. And so far, very, very encouraging, really. And nice to see as Curtis is another driver who's made a mistake going through to turn 3 there.
But he's actually spun the car. Oh, so he's gonna a little bit worse than the others. He's gonna have to wait for some people because there's a pack of cars. But he will have a little bit of clean air right about after the next car, I'd say.
See, there's a couple of more cars, in fact, that's just coming around this left hand.
Yeah, he's not gonna have any clean air to go out right now. He might be removed by the marshals. Now he's coming. He's coming back now. Now he's stopped again.
Because there's more cars, as you can see on the mini map on the top.
Yeah,
right.
there's room for 3 cars to pass through here, and he should be able to re-enter the track after that. Yeah, here we go.
As long as he doesn't make a dog's dinner out of it, which he hasn't. So that's that, really.
Well, let's look at the error.
So let's see, as he just comes out of turn 2, and yeah, just basically a similar error, really. Just a bit of oversteering, carrying
completely
a bit
lost. Yeah, completely lost the front end there, mid-corner. That's something you never want to happen to yourself, of course. You feel in the zone, just driving the car, and then all of a sudden you lose it. It's quite a difficult error to go for, of course. Not just physically, not so tough, mentally. It can really break your confidence in the car. So, yeah.
Indeed, it's Farina now that makes his way through into the final few turns. Farina currently in 19th position. Let's see what the Italian can do on this lap. It looks like he's down on his personal best at the moment as the ART driver just comes out of the final turn, and Farina is now going to cross the line and does not improve.
Remember, Farina won the first race this season last time out, so maybe he can try to do the same. We'll see. As Arnold finally gets within that second. He's found 900 of a second there.
So now all the drivers are under a second between each other. You may remember as well the reason why Farina won that race is because of a crash that happened between, I believe it was it Nguyen and Graf, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, and Nguyen went for a massive torpedo into turn 1 and he completely fog smashed Graf out of the race. And himself out of the race.
As Curtis looked like he was taking that corner a bit too quick again, but this time not making too much of a mistake as he now
Let's
moves
see
into
if he
the.
improved in the first sector. He hasn't. He's way off.
Curtis at the moment currently in 8th in this session, just behind his ex Premier teammate Bent Valdinger. And Valdinger, safe to say the Universios is having a good session. There was a bit of a concern, really, it's safe to say, whether they can keep. Of course, this of course, is only the first test, so it could automatically change. But there was a bit of concern with Univirtuosi picking both Valdinger and Quintino as their lineup. But so far, they seem to be doing a pretty decent job. Whether they can keep that up or not, that's going to be another question.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with picking two drivers who have been on the podium before. It would have been a disaster if they picked two random nobodies, but Quintino and Valdinger, they ain't nobodies and they ain't random either, so they'll be hoping they can find, after some bad seasons, of course, before, they'll be hoping they can get things right this time around.
As we now look at Alexander Arnold, who's just making his way through the section of
Three
corners.
tenths on the leader down in the first sector, as Protiuk struggled a little bit there with the car earlier, but now he's entering the last couple of corners.
As he now just plants the throttle.
Stay high, of course. It's not so fast to go low, even though it might seem like that. You just want to stay high and carry the speed. As Protiuk, he's half second down.
Yep, he remains where he is at the moment, which is P number
17.
17 at the moment. So Protiuk not having the best of sessions at the moment, as Curtis now then around his final few turns. He's got one of the high-tech Grand Prix cars behind him. I believe that's a high-tech Grand Prix car at least anyway.
Yeah, indeed. He's about to cross the line, the reigning champion, with just 3.5 minutes to go in this session.
And across the line,
the
Curtis does not improve and stays where he is for the moment through the first few turns. We have just over 3 minutes to go in this session now then. And currently Graf is still at the top of the moment. He's been at the top for the majority of this session, and so far, very good session for the German.
Absolutely, Joe. And I want to ask you, if this test were to be added like to a newspaper article, let's say like the one Evan did, what do you think would make a good headline for this test?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I'd probably say Dennis Graf tops error-filled first test, or something like that.
Maybe indeed, yes. In a similar style to how, well, I wouldn't say Andrew Benson, but in a similar way to how some news articles goes. As Martin's finished off of the day, and hopefully that flag will be fixed for tomorrow, because of course he is from Brazil, not Russia. So that should hopefully be fixed for tomorrow at Imola, which will be, of course, on the same time as it has been today, 7 p.m. BST. As here is Dore Daniel now then. As a
little bit off in sector 1, but he's just carrying some mileage, of course. Everybody is. Flo told us the reason these guys stay out, have been given unlimited laps, is to learn the new cars. And look at the lap counter for Bush. He's done 42 laps in a 1-hour session. This guy is on fire. Graf has done 41 laps meanwhile, so everybody pushing the limits quite a lot.
Speaking of pushing the limits, you just saw that Graf made a mistake there through into turn 1, so he definitely was pushing the limits that time by. I believe this will be his penultimate lap, unless he gets the pit indicator on his def panel the next time he comes back around.
We've just seen the pit indicator on somebody, I'm not sure who it was again.
As Valdinger crosses the line, as a load of cars are in the pits now, as Blackwood will get himself at least 2 laps before the session comes to a close, because of course, as you can see, judging from the lap times,
if the automatic camera, if the automatic camera doesn't mess around, let's hang around with Blackwood for a lap of Lausitz string here. Let's go into turn 1, a fast left, right, chicane. You want to carry the speed and be nice and hit your apexes there. Take a lot of curb, as Blackwood has just done. That's very good turn in. As he now goes into 4 and 5. Careful on the exit there, get on the throttle early, but don't push your luck. You don't want to end up in the wall. In the first sector, Blackwood is quite a way up, almost close to being purple, and this could be a very good lap for Blackwood here, as you now go in towards this long swooping right-hander. Careful on the second apex there, you want to avoid it, go on the curb, maximize the run, and get the best exit you can onto this shorter straight, and he's still up on his personal best by 2.5 tenths as we now go in towards the final sector. A short flat-out dash here towards a right-hand hairpin, followed by another left-hand hairpin, and then the round onto the banking. Jafari Blackwood could find himself, if not first, then maybe second or thereabouts. So let's see on this lap. It's got 20 seconds to spare. Where's Jafari Blackwood going to go? He's in P18 right now, but he ain't gonna stay there. Where's Blackwood gonna go? Is he going to top the session? No, but he's gone 8th.
So he does improve. So who's going to be the last across the line as the seconds tick down? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Checker flag is out now. The session of Bavona is the last one to cross the line because, of course, for anybody who's not familiar with Grand Prix 4, it doesn't go to the main menu straight away. Graph's finished off for the day. As we now look at
one very close to the wall there. I don't think this will be an improvement.
See the McLaren test driver now that makes his way down the pit straight across the line. He will go, and no improvement for Nguyen on this occasion. Martins was just doing just doing some mileage, I think there. Suto crosses the line, and the Slovakian driver.
Not a good day for him.
Oskin just doing a mileage run there. Henson now then. Henson currently in 14th position. Can they find any more time? The Trident will now cross the line, and no improvement for Rose Henson. A Synonome now then comes down the pit straight. Cross the line will go the Japanese driver, and no improvement for him as just in the background there. And if the camera can get to them, Blackwood crosses the line, no improvement. Just waiting for a couple of more cars now then to cross the line. And that being Keo Shane and Bavona. Here they come now then. As the Thai driver crosses the line, no improvement, and Bavona, no improvement, and that is the session done with.
Well, that was a fun show. I'm not gonna lie.
Indeed, and Graf is the one who tops the session, and
have
Martin's in second.
It is Dennis top.
As we're now going to go to the menu screen once Flo knows how to press the escape button because he doesn't want any more lap times coming out. There you go.
Quite an
press accelerate.
Quite an encouraging sight is. Yeah, good to say. Quite an encouraging sight is that 3 of the guys at the top 4 are rookies. So clearly, it's fresh footing for everybody to learn these cars, and we have an experienced driver atop this session though today, so the rookies haven't clinched top spot. It's been Dennis Graf on top, Jonatas Martin second. From Chanaka China, it was third. He set the lap time first. Blake Moore 4th, but it doesn't matter anyway. It's not qualifying. Gabriel Quintino 5th, ahead of Henry Watson and Ben Waldinger. Yeah, in P8 we have Jafari Blackwood. We're good there. We're good lap there in the dying minutes of the session. Aaron Curtis in P9 with Hyman Quinn in P10. Daniel Darbosh in P11, and you can do the second half, of course, which is quite close.
Tobias Kress in 12th position ahead of Gabriel Rico in 13th, Rose Henson 14th, Samet Oskin 15th, followed by Agatina Bavona in 16th, Adam Chobot 17th, with Ruslan Protsuk in 18th, Luca Farina 19th, with Henderson in 20th, Joseph Frederick Suto in 21st, and in 22nd and last is Alexander Arnold.
Yeah, well, what do you have to say about this test, Joe? Because I think it revealed quite a lot to us.
Very interesting indeed. Graf looking quite strong on the first day at his home track, of course. But whether he can continue that tomorrow at Imola, a completely different track, we'll have to wait and see. And who knows, really?
I think the biggest questions for Imola, however, are if we're going to see the same errors again, the same amount. Have these errors been a result of the cars being difficult to handle? Or is it just the track and the weird mistake rate? We'll have to wait and see. But what we do know for sure is that in 23 hours' time, we'll be underway in less than 23 hours' time, we'll be underway for the second day of pre-season testing at Imola. And I sure can't wait for it. Thank you very much, guys. And this pre-season test at Lausitz Ring did not disappoint. We'll see you again very soon.